My name is Hannah Wilson, and at 34, I finally built my dream home after years of grinding in real estate development. Every brick, every beam, every polished surface was a testament to my hard work. I never expected that the day before my housewarming party, my own sister would walk in and claim my luxury villa as both her wedding venue and future home. The betrayal cut deeper than any construction accident I had endured along the way. Before I dive into this family drama that shows blood isn't always thicker than water, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Growing up in Seattle with my younger sister Tiffany wasn't always easy. Our middle-class parents worked hard to provide for us, but there was always an undeniable difference in how they treated us. While I was expected to earn my allowance by doing chores and maintaining good grades, Tiffany seemed to get whatever she wanted simply by asking. She was the baby of the family, the princess, the one whose tears could move mountains. From an early age, I found myself drawn to buildings and spaces. I would sketch house plans instead of doodling during class, rearrange my bedroom furniture monthly, and drag my parents to open houses just to see different architectural styles. My parents humored my interest, but never really understood it. Architecture is for people who can afford to dream, my father would say. Focus on something practical. Despite their doubts, I held on to my passion. In high school, I took drafting classes and interned with a local construction company during summers. While Tiffany was attending cheerleading camps and going to parties, I was learning about load-bearing walls and building codes. The difference in our interests only widened the gap between us. College was where the disparity in our family dynamics became impossible to ignore. I worked 3 jobs to pay my tuition at the state university, where I studied business with a minor in architectural design. Meanwhile, my parents fully funded Tiffany's education at an expensive private college, where she changed majors 4 times before settling on communications. When I questioned this inequity, my mother simply said, "Tiffany needs more support than you do. You've always been independent." That statement became my unintended mantra as I pushed through my early career. After graduation, I started at the bottom of a real estate development company, working as an assistant to one of the project managers. I soaked up knowledge like a sponge, volunteering for every site visit and staying late to review contracts and permits. My boss noticed my dedication and began giving me more responsibility. Meanwhile, Tiffany bounced between jobs, relying on our parents' financial support whenever things got tough. She'd call me occasionally to complain about her boss or coworkers, but showed little interest in my growing career. The few times I shared my successes, she would quickly change the subject or find ways to diminish my achievements. Real estate development? Isn't that just gentrification with a fancy name? She once asked at a family dinner after I mentioned a promotion. Actually, my company focuses on sustainable development and affordable housing components, I replied. Well, not everyone can afford to be so noble, she said with a dismissive wave. Some of us have to work in the real world. Our parents chuckled at her comment, while I sat there stunned by the irony. I was working 60-hour weeks, while Tiffany had just quit her 3rd job that year because she wasn't feeling fulfilled. As I climbed the corporate ladder, my dream of building my own home began to take more concrete shape. I started setting aside money, researching locations, and sketching preliminary designs. When I shared these plans during a Christmas gathering, my father frowned. Buying land and building from scratch? That's risky business, Hannah. Why not just buy a nice condo downtown like normal people? Because this isn't just about having a place to live, Dad. It's about creating something that represents me. My mother sighed. Always the difficult path with you. Tiffany smirked from across the table. Well, I think it's cute that you want to play architect. Just don't come asking for money when the project goes over budget. That night, I made a decision that would alter the course of my relationship with my family. I would distance myself from their negativity and pursue my dream without their approval. I stopped sharing my plans and progress with them, finding support instead from colleagues and friends who understood my vision. It was around this time that I met Ryan Campbell, an architect who specialized in sustainable luxury homes. Unlike my family, Ryan immediately understood what I was trying to achieve. "You're not just building a house," he said during our first meeting. "You're creating a statement about who you are and what you value." His words resonated deeply with me. For the first time, I felt truly seen and understood. With Ryan's expertise and my industry knowledge, we began transforming my sketches into workable blueprints for what would become my dream villa. Throughout this process, I maintained cordial but distant relationships with my family. Our interactions became limited to major holidays and occasional phone calls, during which I kept conversations superficial. It was easier that way, free from their judgment and Tiffany's competitive nature. When Tiffany announced her engagement to James Reynolds, heir to a regional banking fortune, my parents were ecstatic. For weeks, all family conversations revolved around wedding plans and how fortunate Tiffany was to have found someone so established. I congratulated her sincerely, hopeful that this new chapter might help her find stability and perhaps ease the strange competition she had always felt toward me. Little did I know that her engagement would set the stage for the most shocking betrayal I would ever experience at the hands of my own family. The search for the perfect plot of land took nearly 6 months. I spent every weekend driving through potential neighborhoods, evaluating everything from soil quality to sunlight exposure. When I finally found it, 5 acres on a gentle slope with a breathtaking view of the Cascade Mountains, I knew immediately this was where my dream would take root. The price was steep, even with my careful savings and investment returns over the years. I arranged a meeting with my bank, presenting a detailed business plan that outlined my financial stability and the property's potential value appreciation. After some negotiation, I secured a loan that, combined with my savings, allowed me to purchase the land outright. "Congratulations, Ms. Wilson," the loan officer said as she handed me the paperwork. Not many people could qualify for this type of financing on their own. I felt a surge of pride at her words. This was happening because of my hard work, my planning, and my determination, not because of anyone else's help or connections. With the land secured, Ryan and I began the detailed design process. We spent countless evenings at his office or at local coffee shops, refining every aspect of the villa. I wanted something modern yet timeless, luxurious yet sustainable, impressive yet inviting. The final design included 4 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, an open-concept living area, a gourmet kitchen, a home office, a gym, and a stunning infinity pool that would appear to spill into the mountain vista beyond. "This isn't just a house," Ryan said as we finalized the blueprints. "This is a statement." The next phase, securing permits, proved more challenging than anticipated. The local zoning board had concerns about the size of the structure and its environmental impact. I attended multiple hearings, presenting detailed plans for solar panels, rainwater collection systems, and native landscaping that would minimize disruption to the local ecosystem. Ms. Wilson has clearly put extraordinary thought into sustainability, the head of the board finally conceded after my 3rd presentation. This could set a new standard for luxury development in our region. With permits finally in hand, construction began in early spring. I hired Pacific Northwest Construction, a company known for their craftsmanship and attention to detail. The initial groundbreaking was a private moment, just me, the construction manager Derek, and his team. I didn't invite my family, knowing they wouldn't understand the significance. "Most clients just show up for inspections," Derek commented one afternoon, finding me at the site in work boots and jeans, helping to measure and mark the foundation outline. "Never seen anyone so hands-on." "This isn't just an investment for me," I explained. "It's personal." Throughout the building process, I spent every available moment at the site. I learned to read blueprints with greater precision, to spot potential issues before they became problems, and even to handle some of the less technical construction tasks myself. The crew initially seemed skeptical of my presence, but gradually came to respect my dedication and growing knowledge. I documented the progress on my personal social media, sharing weekly updates with friends and colleagues. The posts gained unexpected traction, with many followers expressing admiration for both the design and my involvement in bringing it to life. I hadn't intended for my sister to see these updates. We weren't connected on most platforms, but mutual acquaintances apparently shared them with her. One evening, I received a text from Tiffany. "Saw your little house project online. Isn't it a bit much for just one person? Some people might call it showing off." I chose not to respond, but the message stung, even from a distance. She couldn't simply be happy for me. As summer turned to fall, the villa's structure took impressive shape. The framing was complete, the roof installed, and work had begun on the interior. Each finished element brought me immense satisfaction. The custom windows that perfectly framed the mountain view. The reclaimed wood beams that added warmth to the modern design. The hand-selected stone for the massive fireplace that anchored the great room. During this time, I received occasional family updates through my mother's periodic calls. Tiffany and James had set a wedding date for the following summer. They were house hunting but hadn't found anything that met their, or rather, Tiffany's, exacting standards. My parents were contributing what they could to the wedding, which I suspected meant significantly depleting their retirement savings. I made polite inquiries but kept these conversations brief. My focus remained on my project, which was now entering its final and most detailed phase. By early winter, the villa was nearly complete. The floors were installed, wide plank oak in the living areas, Italian marble in the bathrooms. The kitchen featured top-of-the-line appliances and custom cabinetry. The lighting system, which I had obsessed over for months, was programmed to enhance both the architecture and the surrounding views at different times of day. The final inspections went smoothly, with only minor adjustments needed before I received the certificate of occupancy. Standing in the empty great room after the inspectors left, I felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. This place, this beautiful, thoughtfully created space, was mine. A physical manifestation of years of hard work and unwavering vision. I decided it was time to share my achievement with others, including my family. Despite our strained relationship, some part of me still hoped they might recognize and respect what I had accomplished. I planned a housewarming party for a Saturday in February, sending elegant invitations to colleagues, friends, and yes, my parents and Tiffany. My mother called shortly after receiving the invitation. "It looks lovely, dear. We're so curious to see this house you've been working on for so long. Can we come by the day before? Tiffany will be in town, and she's very eager to see it too." Something in her tone should have warned me, but I was too caught up in my excitement and pride. "Of course," I replied. "I'd be happy to give you a private tour before the party." As I spent the final days preparing for the housewarming, selecting furniture, arranging for catering, adding the decorative touches that would make the house truly feel like home, I had no idea that my family was preparing for something entirely different. The morning before my housewarming party dawned clear and crisp, with sunlight streaming through the wall of windows in my bedroom. I woke early, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. After nearly 2 years of planning, designing, and building, I was finally ready to share my achievement with the world, or at least with the people who mattered to me. I spent the morning arranging fresh flowers throughout the house, adjusting furniture placements, and making sure every detail was perfect. The caterers would arrive tomorrow, but today was about putting my personal touch on the space. I hung a few carefully selected pieces of art, positioned books on shelves, and placed photographs on side tables, transforming the architecturally stunning house into my home. Around noon, I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. Looking out through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I saw my parents' familiar sedan followed by a sleek black Range Rover I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened slightly. I had expected my parents and Tiffany, but not additional guests. I opened the massive front door just as they approached. My mother embraced me with her usual perfunctory hug, while my father offered a stiff pat on the shoulder. Tiffany hung back, her expression unreadable. Behind her stood a tall man in an expensive suit, James, I presumed, and a petite woman clutching a tablet and measuring tape. "Hannah, the house is certainly something," my mother said, her gaze sweeping critically over the facade. much larger than I expected. Thanks for having us over, my father mumbled, not quite meeting my eyes. Tiffany finally stepped forward, air kissing near my cheek. Hannah, this is my fiancé, James, and our wedding planner, Melissa. Wedding planner? I frowned slightly but extended my hand to them both. Nice to meet you. I didn't realize we'd have additional guests today. Oh, we need to get measurements and take photos, Tiffany said breezily, pushing past me into the entryway. Her eyes widened as she took in the soaring ceiling, the floating staircase, and the panoramic view beyond. This is perfect. Even better than the pictures online. Something about her tone sent warning signals through my body. Measurements? Photos? What for? My mother placed a hand on my arm. Let's all sit down and talk, shall we? You do have furniture, don't you? I led them to the great room, where comfortable seating surrounded the stone fireplace. The wedding planner immediately began taking photos with her phone and making notes on her tablet. Excuse me, I said, confusion giving way to irritation. Could someone please explain what's going on? My parents exchanged glances before my mother spoke. Hannah, dear, we know how hard you've worked on this house, and it's truly lovely. But family helps family, and your sister has a wonderful opportunity here. Tiffany beamed. We're going to have the wedding here in June. The ceremony on the lawn with the mountains as backdrop. Reception in this gorgeous room, and then, she clasped her hands together excitedly, we'll move in right after the honeymoon. Isn't it perfect? I stared at her, certain I had misheard. You want to have your wedding here? And move in afterward. Dad promised it to me, Tiffany said. Her voice taking on the wheedling tone I recognized from our childhood, the one that usually preceded her getting exactly what she wanted. I turned to my father, who was studying the floor with sudden interest. Dad? What is she talking about? My mother answered instead. Your father mentioned to Tiffany that since you built this house all alone, with no husband or children to fill it, perhaps you'd consider sharing your good fortune with your sister. It would make a beautiful wedding gift. The room seemed to tilt around me. Sharing my good fortune? This isn't lottery winnings, Mom. This is my home. That I designed. That I financed. That I helped build with my own hands. James cleared his throat. My parents are quite excited about it as well. They've already told their friends that we'll be living in a custom villa in this neighborhood. It would be rather embarrassing to backtrack now. Tiffany nodded emphatically. Plus, we've already sent out save the dates with this property as the venue. She held up her phone, showing me a digital invitation featuring an aerial photograph of my property, a photograph that must have been taken by a drone without my knowledge or permission. I never agreed to any of this, I said, my voice eerily calm despite the rage and disbelief building inside me. This is my home. I'm having my housewarming party here tomorrow. I'm not giving it to you as a wedding gift or anything else. My mother's expression hardened. Hannah, don't be selfish. Tiffany is starting a family. They need the space more than you do. You can build another house, you know how to do it now. Or buy a nice condo downtown, my father finally spoke, echoing his dismissive suggestion from years ago. Something more suitable for a single woman. Melissa, the wedding planner, seemingly oblivious to the tension, walked around the room with her measuring tape. This space could easily accommodate 200 guests. We'd need to move this furniture, of course. And those kitchen counters would be perfect for the dessert station. I stood up abruptly. Stop. Just stop. No one is measuring anything. No one is planning a wedding here. And absolutely no one is moving in after a honeymoon. Tiffany's eyes filled with tears, her default response whenever she didn't get her way. You're ruining everything. We've been planning this for months. Planning to take my house? Behind my back? And I'm the one ruining everything. I was shouting now, unable to contain my anger. Be reasonable, Hannah, my mother snapped. Family makes sacrifices for each other. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me? I demanded. You didn't support my education. You didn't encourage my career. You didn't contribute a single dollar to this house. You didn't even believe I could do it. My father stood up, his face flushed. That's enough. Your mother and I raised you. We put a roof over your head. And this is how you repay us? By denying your sister the happiness she deserves. The absurdity of his statement might have made me laugh if I wasn't so furious. Her happiness doesn't require my house. This isn't about Tiffany's happiness. This is about Tiffany wanting what I have, like always. James stepped forward, adopting a conciliatory tone. Perhaps we can reach a compromise. My family is prepared to offer you a fair price for the property. It's not for sale, I said flatly. My mother's voice turned cold. Hannah Wilson, you listen to me. If you don't do this for your sister, you can consider yourself cut off from this family. No more holidays, no wedding invitation, nothing. Is this house worth losing your family over? I looked around at their faces, my mother's righteous anger, my father's weak acquiescence, Tiffany's manipulative tears. James's condescending patience, and suddenly saw with perfect clarity what I should have recognized years ago. This wasn't a family that supported each other. This was a hierarchy where my needs and feelings had always ranked last. I think you should leave, I said quietly. All of you. Right now. You can't be serious, Tiffany wailed. Deadly serious, I replied, walking to the front door and holding it open. Get out of my house. They gathered their things in stunned silence, the reality of my refusal finally sinking in. As they filed past me, my mother paused. You'll regret this, she said, her voice low. When you're all alone in this big, empty house, you'll wish you'd done the right thing. I met her gaze steadily. I already did the right thing. I built a home I love. And I'm protecting it from people who don't respect me or what I've accomplished. After they left, I stood in the sudden silence of my beautiful empty house, shaking with anger and hurt. Tomorrow was supposed to be a celebration. Now it felt tainted by their betrayal. I sank onto the stairs and buried my face in my hands, wondering if I had just lost my family forever and whether that loss might actually be a kind of freedom. I spent the next few hours in a daze, moving mechanically through my final preparations for the housewarming while replaying the confrontation in my mind. The audacity of their assumption that I would simply hand over my dream home still left me breathless with anger. The sound of vehicles on the driveway again pulled me from my thoughts. Looking outside, I saw not just the Range Rover returning, but 2 additional luxury cars behind it. Tiffany had brought reinforcements. This time, I didn't open the door immediately. I watched through the window as Tiffany emerged from the Range Rover, followed by James. From the second car, an older couple exited, the man sharing James's height and bearing. The woman dressed impeccably in designer clothes. James's parents, I assumed. The third car delivered my parents, my father looking uncomfortable, my mother determined. When they reached the door, I finally opened it, blocking the entrance with my body. I thought I made myself clear earlier. Hannah, don't be difficult, Tiffany said, attempting to sound reasonable. James's parents wanted to see their future son and daughter-in-law's home. They've come all the way from Boston. This isn't your home, I stated firmly. And I didn't invite them for a tour. James's father stepped forward, extending his hand. Richard Reynolds. And this is my wife, Elaine. I understand there's been some miscommunication about the property. I didn't take his hand. There's been no miscommunication. This is my house. I designed it, financed it, and built it. It's not for sale, and it's not being given away as a wedding present. Elaine Reynolds peered past me into the foyer, her expression one of barely concealed disdain. It's certainly interesting. A bit modern for my taste, but I suppose Tiffany could redecorate. The location is acceptable at least. Did you not hear what I just said? I asked incredulously. You won't be redecorating anything because this isn't your house. Tiffany pushed forward, tears already streaming down her face. You're ruining everything. Do you know how embarrassing this is? I've already told everyone about our new home. That's not my problem, I replied coldly. You shouldn't have told people you were getting a house that doesn't belong to you. James placed a steadying hand on Tiffany's shoulder before addressing me. Hannah, let's be reasonable adults here. We understand you've put work into this property, and you deserve compensation. I'm prepared to make you a fair offer, say, market value minus the family discount? Family discount. I repeated, unable to hide my disbelief. 10% seems generous, he continued, misinterpreting my question as a negotiation tactic. And of course, We'd acknowledge your contribution during the wedding speeches. Full credit for your craftsmanship. I felt a laugh bubbling up, not from humor, but from the sheer absurdity of the situation. There is no offer, James. There is no negotiation. This house is not for sale to you or anyone else. And I don't need acknowledgement in wedding speeches for something that is already mine. My mother pushed her way forward. Hannah, stop being so stubborn. Your sister is getting married. This is supposed to be the happiest time of her life. And you're spoiling it with your selfishness. My selfishness. I shook my head in disbelief. How exactly am I being selfish by not giving away a multi-million-dollar property that I worked years to create? Because family helps family, she insisted, repeating her earlier refrain. Your father promised Tiffany she could have it. I turned to my father, who was lingering behind the group. Is that true, Dad? Did you promise Tiffany my house? He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. I may have mentioned that, given the size of the place and your situation, that perhaps, eventually. Eventually what? I pressed. He sighed heavily. I told her she could probably have the house someday. That you'd see reason. That you'd want to help your sister start her married life on the right foot. Without ever asking me? I was shouting now, unable to contain my fury. Without even considering that this is my life's work, not some spare property I had lying around? Richard Reynolds cleared his throat disapprovingly. There's no need for histrionics, young lady. Perhaps we should step inside and discuss this like civilized people. There's nothing to discuss, I said firmly. And you're not coming inside. Tiffany's tears escalated to full sobbing. You've always been jealous of me. You've always wanted to ruin my happiness. This is supposed to be the most special time of my life. Her accusations were so wildly unjust that for a moment, I couldn't even respond. James put his arm around her protectively, glaring at me as if I were some villain in their love story. If you won't be reasonable, my mother said, her voice cold. We may need to explore legal options. Your father did make a promise. A verbal promise about property he doesn't own holds no legal weight, I retorted. But please, waste your money on lawyers. I have every deed, permit, invoice, and payment record documenting my sole ownership. Richard Reynolds stepped closer, his manner shifting from condescension to intimidation. Listen carefully. My son and future daughter-in-law have announced to our entire social circle that this will be their marital home. The invitations have been sent. My wife has already discussed renovation plans with our designer. Do you understand the embarrassment your stubbornness would cause our family? Your embarrassment is not my responsibility, I replied, standing my ground despite his attempt to loom over me. Perhaps you should have verified ownership before making announcements. As this confrontation continued on my doorstep, I noticed another car pulling into the driveway. To my immense relief, it was Ryan, the architect, along with a few of my closest friends who had offered to help with final preparations for tomorrow's party. They approached our group with confused expressions. Everything okay here, Hannah? Ryan asked, his eyes taking in the tense scene. Not really, I answered honestly. My family and these people were just leaving. We most certainly were not, Elaine Reynolds sniffed. We came to see our son's new home. Ryan looked at me questioningly. I shook my head slightly. There's been a misunderstanding, I explained to my friends. My sister incorrectly assumed I was giving her my house as a wedding present. I'm not. My friend Megan stepped forward. Wait, what? They thought you were just giving away the house you've been working on for 2 years? Apparently. Tiffany's tears abruptly subsided as she noticed the newcomers. This is a private family matter, she said coldly. Actually, I corrected her, this is my property, and these are my invited guests. You are the ones intruding. The arrival of my friends seemed to shift the power dynamic. No longer was I alone facing my family's united front. I had allies, people who had supported my dream from the beginning, who understood what this house meant to me. My father, perhaps sensing that the situation was only escalating, touched my mother's arm. We should go. This isn't the right time. The right time for what? I demanded. For bullying me into giving away everything I've worked for? There will never be a right time for that. My mother's face hardened. You've made your choice, Hannah. Don't expect us at your little party tomorrow. I think that's for the best, I agreed, surprising myself with how little their absence would bother me. As they turned to leave, Tiffany made one last desperate appeal. What am I supposed to tell everyone? Where are we supposed to get married now? For the first time, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her. Not enough to change my mind, but enough to see that in her own way, she was also a victim of our parents' favoritism. They had raised her to expect that her wishes would always be accommodated, regardless of how unreasonable. That's something you'll need to figure out, I told her, not unkindly. But this house is my home, not your wedding venue or future residence. As their cars disappeared down the driveway, I felt an unexpected sense of lightness. The confrontation had been painful, but it had also been clarifying. For years, I had maintained a relationship with my family out of obligation, always hoping they would eventually really see me and what I had accomplished. Now I understood that might never happen. And strangely, accepting that truth felt like freedom. Ryan placed a supportive hand on my shoulder. You okay? I took a deep breath and nodded. I will be. Come on in, I could use some help getting ready for tomorrow. It seems I'm going to have a housewarming party after all. As my friends followed me inside, Megan whispered, You have to tell us everything that happened. I will, I promised. But first, I need to show you something in my office. I think it's time to review exactly what documentation I have, just in case they really do try something legal. I had a feeling this confrontation was far from over. But for the first time, I was ready to stand my ground not just for my house, but for myself. After explaining the bizarre situation to my friends, I led them to my home office, a space I had designed with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a custom desk that overlooked the mountains, and ample storage for all my project documentation. While they absorbed the shocking behavior of my family, I began pulling out folders and opening my laptop. I can't believe they would just assume you'd give them your house, Megan said, shaking her head in disbelief. Who does that? My sister, apparently, I replied, sifting through papers. And my parents, who have always enabled her. Ryan examined the construction photos I had framed on the wall, images capturing various stages of the building process, many showing me working alongside the crew. You literally helped build this place with your own hands. How could they not respect that? I paused, a folder in my hands. They've never really respected anything I've done. I just didn't want to see it. As I organized the documents, deeds, permits, bank statements, loan agreements, construction contracts, a notification popped up on my laptop. A new email from Tiffany. My first instinct was to ignore it, but something made me click. The message was brief. You're being completely unreasonable. Attached is the wedding plan we've already paid deposits for. Look at it and tell me how I'm supposed to change everything in 4 months. I opened the attachment, expecting to see a simple event outline. Instead, I found a comprehensive 50-page document detailing every aspect of a wedding and reception planned entirely around my property, without my knowledge or consent. The document was dated from 6 months ago. Guys, you need to see this, I said, turning the laptop toward my friends. As we scrolled through the file, my shock deepened. There were detailed floor plans of my house with seating arrangements, decoration schemes, and even notes about which of my walls would be temporarily removed to create the perfect flow for the reception. The master bedroom had been redesigned as the bridal preparation suite, and the pool area was marked for a post-wedding brunch. But most disturbing were the notes about post-wedding renovations scheduled to begin the day after their honeymoon. These included replacing my carefully selected fixtures, repainting every room, and even plans to enclose that unnecessary 2-story window in the great room to create a more traditional feel. This is insane, Megan whispered. They weren't just planning to use your house, they were planning to completely change it. I continued searching through my emails and found more disturbing evidence. There were messages between Tiffany and various wedding vendors, all referring to the Reynolds' new estate. There were communications with a decorator discussing erasing the current owner's questionable taste. And most shockingly, there was an email chain between Tiffany and my mother discussing the best way to convince Hannah to sign over the property. She's been planning this takeover for months, I said, feeling sick to my stomach. And my parents have been helping her. My friend Daniel, who worked in real estate law, had been reviewing my property documents. He looked up with a concerned expression. Hannah, have you checked the guest list for your housewarming? Not recently. Why? Just a hunch. Can I see it? I pulled up the digital invitation list I'd created. Daniel scanned it quickly, then nodded grimly. I thought so. You've invited several of Tiffany's friends and some of your parents' friends, people you don't know well. Mom insisted, I explained. She said it would be rude not to include them since they've heard so much about the house. I bet they have, Daniel said. I think they were planning to use your housewarming as an opportunity to announce Tiffany and James's ownership of the property. Make it a public fait accompli that would be harder for you to dispute. The pieces clicked into place. The insistence on coming the day before. The wedding planner with her measuring tape. The pressure to be reasonable and accept their terms. They had been laying groundwork for this moment for months, manipulating events so I would feel I had no choice but to surrender my home. We need to gather all of this evidence, Daniel advised. And I think you should consider getting a restraining order. A restraining order? Against my own family? The suggestion stunned me, even after everything that had happened. Hannah, Ryan said gently, they've shown they don't respect your boundaries. What's to stop them from showing up tomorrow with wedding guests in tow, creating a scene that would be humiliating for everyone? He was right. My family had demonstrated they were willing to go to extreme lengths to get what they wanted. I needed to protect myself and my property. I'll make some calls, Daniel offered. In the meantime, let's print everything. Emails, contracts, bank statements, anything that proves your sole ownership and documents their plan. For the next hour, we organized the evidence into clear, chronological portfolios. The story they told was damning. My independent financing and construction of the villa, contrasted with Tiffany and my parents behind-the-scenes scheming to appropriate it. As we worked, my phone began ringing repeatedly, first my mother, then my father, then Tiffany. I ignored them all. Finally, a text from James. My parents are extremely displeased with how things went today. They're prepared to involve their attorneys if necessary. Please be reasonable. I showed the message to Daniel, who just shook his head. Empty threat. They have no legal ground to stand on. Just as we finished compiling the documentation, the doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I could see Tiffany and James standing on my porch again. This time, they were alone. Should I answer it? I asked my friends. Only if you feel comfortable, Megan advised. We're all here with you. I decided to face them. With my friends behind me, I opened the door but didn't invite them in. What now, Tiffany? I asked wearily. We need to talk, she said. Her voice lacking its earlier hysteria. Just us. No parents, no lawyers. I hesitated, then nodded. Fine. We can talk on the terrace. I led them through the house to the back terrace overlooking the mountains, gesturing for my friends to give us privacy, but stay within earshot. Once we were seated, James spoke first. Look. Things got out of hand earlier. Everyone was emotional. Emotional? I repeated. You tried to claim my house. You brought your parents to inspect a property that isn't yours. That goes beyond emotional. Tiffany at least had the grace to look uncomfortable. I might have exaggerated certain things to James and his family. Exaggerated how? I may have implied that you had already agreed to give us the house, she admitted, and that the paperwork was just a formality. James looked sharply at her. Tiffany, you told me your sister had explicitly offered the property as a wedding gift. You said the only reason we were looking at other houses was as a backup. I pulled out my phone and opened the wedding document Tiffany had emailed me. And what about this? Planning renovations to my house months ago? Arranging for walls to be knocked down? Scheduling painters to erase every design choice I made. Tiffany's face drained of color as I handed the phone to James. He scrolled through the document, his expression growing increasingly troubled. I didn't know about most of this, he said quietly. I knew we were planning to have the wedding here, but this goes well beyond that. There's more, I said, retrieving the portfolio of printed emails. Tiffany has been telling your family, your friends, and all your wedding guests that this is already your house. She's been working with Mom to figure out how to pressure me into signing over the property. James's face hardened as he read through the emails. Is this true, Tiffany? She burst into tears, real ones this time, not the calculated sobs she had deployed earlier. I just wanted what Hannah has. She always gets everything. The career, the success. The beautiful house. It's not fair. I worked for everything I have, I reminded her. Nothing was handed to me. That's not true. Mom and Dad always said you were the smart one. The capable one, the independent one. Do you know what it's like growing up as the pretty one who everyone assumes can't do anything important? Her words hit me with unexpected force. I had always seen myself as the overlooked child, the one whose achievements were minimized while Tiffany was praised and coddled. I had never considered that their lower expectations for her might have been its own form of cage. That doesn't justify trying to take my house, I said, but my voice had softened slightly. James was still reading the emails, his expression growing increasingly grim. There's something else you both should know, he said finally. Tiffany, you need to tell your sister the truth about our financial situation. Tiffany shook her head frantically. James, please. No more lies, he insisted. Hannah deserves to know why you've been so desperate to secure this house. Tiffany's shoulders slumped in defeat. I'm in debt, she whispered. Serious debt. How serious? I asked. Almost $300,000, James answered when Tiffany couldn't. Credit cards, personal loans, online shopping accounts. I only found out last month. I stared at my sister in disbelief. How is that even possible? It just happened, she said defensively. A little at first, then more, and then I was using new cards to pay off old ones. And it just spiraled. My parents don't know, James continued. They would cancel the wedding if they knew. They're very traditional about financial responsibility. Suddenly, the desperate grab for my house made more sense. It wasn't just about Tiffany wanting what I had, though that was certainly part of it. It was about her needing to maintain the illusion of success and prosperity to secure her marriage to James. So you thought you'd solve your problems by taking my house, I summarized. I thought it could be a fresh start, Tiffany admitted. We could sell it eventually, pay off my debts, and James's parents would never have to know. James ran a hand through his hair, looking both angry and exhausted. I told her we needed to be honest with everyone, deal with the debt responsibly. But she insisted this was the only way. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw something I had never noticed before: fear. Beneath the entitlement and manipulation was a frightened woman who had never learned to stand on her own. Tiffany, I said carefully, I can't give you my house. Not as a wedding venue. Not as a gift, not as a solution to your financial problems. This is my home, and I worked too hard for it. She nodded miserably, not meeting my eyes. But I continued, surprising myself. I might be able to help you in other ways. I know financial advisors who specialize in debt management. I could connect you with them. James looked up, hope flickering across his face. You do that? After everything? I'm not doing it for you, I clarified. I'm doing it because despite everything, she's still my sister. And it sounds like she needs help learning skills no one ever taught her. For the first time that day, perhaps for the first time in years, Tiffany looked at me without resentment or envy. Just raw, genuine gratitude. Thank you, she whispered. This doesn't mean I forgive you, I warned. What you tried to do is wrong on every level. And I'm still processing the fact that our parents supported it. They thought they were helping me, Tiffany said weakly. By hurting me, I pointed out. That's not how family is supposed to work. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the terrace, I realized we had reached a turning point. The villa had become more than just my dream home. It had become the catalyst for exposing long-buried family dynamics and forcing us all to face uncomfortable truths. For me, the truth was that I might never have the supportive, loving family I had always hoped for. For Tiffany, it was that shortcuts and manipulation wouldn't solve her problems. And for both of us, perhaps, it was the recognition that the patterns established in our childhood didn't have to define our relationship as adults. You should go, I said finally. I have a housewarming to prepare for tomorrow. And you both have some difficult conversations ahead with James's parents. They rose to leave, but but at the door, Tiffany turned back. Hannah, I am sorry. Not just for this, but for a lot of things. It wasn't enough, not nearly enough to heal the hurt she had caused. But it was something. A small crack in the facade that had defined our relationship for decades. I know, I said simply. And as I closed the door behind them, I felt the first tentative step toward something new, not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps a path toward a more honest relationship than we had ever had before. The morning of my housewarming party arrived with a clarity that seemed fitting. The mountains stood crisp against the blue sky, and sunlight poured through the windows of my villa, illuminating spaces that had been designed to capture exactly this kind of natural beauty. Despite the drama of the previous day, I felt strangely calm as I moved through my morning routine in my new home. My friends arrived early to help with final preparations, their support a tangible reminder that family isn't always defined by blood. Megan brought fresh flowers for the table centerpieces. Ryan made adjustments to the lighting system to showcase the architecture perfectly. Daniel arrived with a bottle of champagne and the news that he had drafted a cease and desist letter, just in case. I don't think we'll need it, I told him, arranging glasses on the bar. James seemed to understand the reality of the situation, even if Tiffany is still struggling with it. And your parents? Megan asked cautiously. I sighed. They left several voicemails overnight. Mostly variations on how disappointed they are in me for not helping my sister in her time of need. You mean by not giving her your multi-million-dollar house? Ryan said incredulously. The audacity never stops surprising me. I think they genuinely don't see anything wrong with what they asked for, I admitted. In their minds, Tiffany needs help. So, of course, everyone should sacrifice to provide it, especially me. As we finished the preparations, I found myself wondering who would actually show up. Would the guests loyal to my family boycott the event? Would Tiffany and James make another scene? The uncertainty added an edge of tension to what should have been a purely joyful day. But as the first guests began to arrive, my anxiety eased. Colleagues from the development company came bearing thoughtful housewarming gifts. Friends from college and graduate school exclaimed over the details of the house, asking genuine questions about the design choices and construction challenges. Neighbors stopped by, curious about the stunning new addition to their community. No one from my family appeared, not my parents, not Tiffany and James, not the extended relatives who had always taken their side. Their absence was noticeable but, surprisingly, not painful. Instead, I found myself surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, who respected my accomplishments, and who could share in my joy without resentment or calculation. Midway through the party, I stepped away for a moment of quiet on the terrace. Ryan joined me, handing me a glass of champagne. To your dream home, he said, raising his glass in a toast. And to the remarkable woman who built it. I smiled, clinking my glass against his. Thank you. Not just for the toast, but for believing in this vision from the beginning. It was easy to believe in, he replied. You knew exactly what you wanted, and you were willing to work for it. That's rare. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the late afternoon sun cast golden light across the mountains. So, what happens now? Ryan asked finally. With your family, I mean. It was the question I had been asking myself since the confrontation. I'm not sure, I admitted. Part of me wants to cut them off completely after what they tried to do. But another part still hopes for reconciliation, he suggested gently. Not reconciliation exactly. More like evolution. A new kind of relationship based on reality instead of the roles we've always played. I shook my head. Maybe that's naive. It's not naive to want healthy relationships, Ryan said. But it takes both sides being willing to change. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message. It was from my father, the first direct communication from him since the confrontation. Your mother, and I would like to speak with you. Just us. No Tiffany. Tomorrow afternoon if possible. I showed Ryan the message. What do you think? I think you should meet them on your terms, not theirs, he advised. Neutral territory, not here and not their house. And be clear about your boundaries. I nodded, appreciating his wisdom. I typed a response suggesting a coffee shop downtown the following afternoon, then returned my attention to my guests. The party continued into the evening, the villa coming alive with conversation and laughter. As twilight fell, the lighting system activated automatically, illuminating the architectural features with a warm glow that earned appreciative comments from those still present. "This is what a housewarming should be," Megan said, joining me as I surveyed the scene. "People who love you, celebrating this amazing thing you've created." "It would have been nice if my family could have been part of that," I admitted. "Maybe someday," she replied, "but only if they earn it." The next afternoon, I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early, choosing a table near the back where we could talk privately. My parents arrived precisely on time, my father looking uncomfortable, my mother's expression carefully neutral. After ordering coffee, an awkward silence fell. I decided to break it directly. "You wanted to talk," I prompted. "I'm listening." My father cleared his throat. "First, I want to apologize for my role in all this. I should never have suggested to Tiffany that your house might be available to her. It was wrong of me." The apology surprised me. My father rarely admitted mistakes. "Thank you for saying that," I replied cautiously. My mother's lips tightened. "We still think you could have been more generous to your sister. She's going through a difficult time." "Mom," I said firmly. "I offered to help Tiffany with financial advisors and debt management. That's appropriate assistance. Giving her my house is not. But family helps family," I finished for her. "Yes, you've said that repeatedly. But help doesn't mean enabling bad decisions or sacrificing my own well-being. And it certainly doesn't mean giving up my home." My father placed a restraining hand on my mother's arm. "We didn't come here to argue, Margaret." He turned to me. "Hannah, James came to see us last night. He told us about Tiffany's financial situation. We had no idea." "You never asked," I pointed out. "You just assumed I should solve the problem by giving up everything I've worked for." My mother's eyes filled with tears, not calculated like Tiffany's, but genuine. "We've always expected you to be the strong one." Maybe that wasn't fair. It was the closest thing to an acknowledgement of their unequal treatment that I had ever heard from her. I felt a complex mix of emotions, vindication, lingering anger, but also a glimmer of hope that perhaps they were capable of growth after all. "It wasn't fair," I agreed. "And it hurt. For years, I've watched you support Tiffany emotionally, financially, and in every other way while expecting me to manage on my own. And even now, your first instinct was to ask me to sacrifice for her again." My father nodded slowly. "When you put it that way, I can see how it looks. We thought we were treating you both according to your needs. Tiffany needed more support, and you seemed so capable." "Being capable doesn't mean I didn't need support," I said quietly. "It just meant I learned to succeed without it." The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, covering decades of family dynamics that had never before been openly discussed. There were difficult moments, especially when my mother struggled to accept her role in enabling Tiffany's behavior. But there were also breakthroughs, my father's admission that he had often been proud of my independence, but hadn't known how to express it. My mother's realization that her protection of Tiffany had ultimately hindered her growth. We didn't resolve everything that afternoon. Decades of entrenched patterns couldn't be undone in a single conversation. But we established a foundation for a new kind of relationship, one based on honest communication rather than unspoken expectations and resentments. As for Tiffany and James, their wedding plans underwent significant changes. The lavish event they had initially envisioned was scaled back considerably. James's parents, upon learning of Tiffany's financial situation, insisted on a prenuptial agreement and financial counseling as conditions for their continued support. 2 weeks after our confrontation, Tiffany asked to meet me for lunch. She seemed different, humbled, perhaps, or simply more genuine than I had seen her in years. "James and I are working with a financial advisor," she told me. "The one you recommended. It's hard, facing all my mistakes at once. But necessary," I added. She nodded. "Yeah, necessary." She pushed her salad around her plate nervously. "I wanted to ask you something." "It's not about the house, I promise." "What is it?" I asked warily. Would you help me learn how to be better with money?" Not by giving me any, she added quickly. Just by teaching me how you do it. How you saved and planned and built something on your own. The request touched me more deeply than I expected. For the first time in our adult lives, Tiffany was looking to me not with envy or resentment, but with genuine respect. I can do that, I agreed. It won't be easy, and I'll need to see real commitment from you. I understand, she said solemnly. I'm ready to do the work. In the months that followed, our family relationship shifted in subtle but meaningful ways. My parents made efforts to recognize my accomplishments without immediately turning the conversation to Tiffany. Tiffany and I began meeting weekly to review her budget and financial plans, gradually rebuilding a relationship based on mutual respect rather than competition. The wedding, when it finally happened, was held at a charming boutique hotel downtown. I attended not as the provider of a venue, but simply as the sister of the bride. Watching Tiffany and James exchange vows, I felt genuine happiness for them and pride in the boundaries I had maintained, which had ultimately led to healthier relationships for all of us. After the ceremony, my father sought me out. Your sister tells me you've been helping her understand finances. I have, I confirmed. She's actually got good instincts when she applies herself. He nodded thoughtfully. You know, I never gave either of you much guidance about money. My father didn't teach me, and I guess I perpetuated that pattern. It's never too late to learn, I told him. The words applying to much more than just financial literacy. As I drove home that evening to my beautiful villa, still mine, still a testament to my vision and hard work, I reflected on how differently things might have turned out had I not stood my ground. The house had become more than just a structure. It was a symbol of my worth, my boundaries, and my newfound understanding that helping others didn't require sacrificing myself. The lights of the villa welcomed me home as I pulled into the driveway. Inside, every space reflected choices I had made, challenges I had overcome, and dreams I had realized. It was exactly where I was meant to be. 6 months after the wedding, life had settled into new patterns. My villa, once the source of so much family conflict, had become a gathering place for both old friends and new connections. The tension that had surrounded it had dissipated, replaced by an appreciation for what it represented, not just architectural beauty, but personal strength and boundaries. On a sunny Saturday morning, I was enjoying coffee on my terrace when my phone chimed with a message from Tiffany. We closed on the house yesterday. Small but perfect for us. Thank you for helping make this possible. Attached was a photo of Tiffany and James standing proudly in front of a modest but charming craftsman-style home. Nothing like my modernist villa, but perfectly suited to their needs and, most importantly, within their newly responsible budget. I smiled, feeling genuine happiness for my sister. Our weekly financial mentoring sessions had evolved into something I never expected, a real relationship between equals. Tiffany had approached her debt with surprising determination once she accepted it couldn't be wished away. She had taken a job with a marketing firm, using her social skills productively instead of focusing on appearances. She and James had worked with the financial advisor to create a realistic debt repayment plan and saved diligently for a reasonable down payment on their starter home. I typed back, "It's beautiful. And you made it happen yourselves. I'm proud of you both." Later that day, I welcomed a small group of women to my home, the first meeting of what I hoped would become a regular gathering. After my experience with Tiffany, I had recognized a need for financial empowerment among women, particularly those trying to navigate property ownership on their own. I had reached out to colleagues in real estate and finance, and together we had created an informal network to provide education and support. "Welcome," I said, as the women settled into the great room with its spectacular mountain view. "I know some of you are here because you're thinking about buying your first home. Others are considering investment properties. And some of you are dreaming of building something entirely your own, as I did. Whatever your goal, I want you to know it's possible." I shared my story, the vision, the challenges, the family conflict, and ultimately, the resolution. I showed them my documentation system, explained how I had navigated loans and permits, and offered practical advice about working with contractors. But mostly, I emphasized the importance of believing in their own vision, even when others couldn't see it. After the meeting, as I was saying goodbye to the last few attendees, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Your father and I were wondering if you'd join us for dinner next weekend," she said. Nothing formal. Just the three of us. These invitations had become more frequent over the past months, tentative efforts to build a new kind of relationship. They weren't always comfortable, but they were honest in a way our family interactions had rarely been before. "I'd like that," I replied. "Should I bring anything?" "Just yourself," she said. Then, after a slight hesitation, "We're proud of what you're doing with these workshops for women. Your father saw the article in the local business journal." The acknowledgement was still new enough to surprise me. "Thank you. That means a lot." After we hung up, I walked through my villa, running my hands along the surfaces I had selected with such care. Every corner held memories now, not just of the building process, but of the personal growth that had accompanied it. The great room where I had stood my ground against my family's demands. The terrace where Tiffany had finally told the truth about her situation. The office where I had gathered the evidence that protected my dream. That evening, I hosted a dinner party for my closest friends, the people who had supported me through the crisis and celebrated my victories. As we gathered around the dining table, Ryan raised his glass in a toast. "To Hannah," he said, "who built not just a beautiful house, but a life on her own terms." As glasses clinked and conversation flowed, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The villa had always been a dream about more than just architecture and design. It had been about creating a space that was truly mine, that reflected my values and priorities. What I hadn't anticipated was how it would become a catalyst for transformation in so many areas of my life. My relationship with my family, while still evolving, had moved from enabling dysfunction to establishing healthier patterns. My sister was finally taking responsibility for her choices rather than expecting others to solve her problems. My parents were beginning to see me as an individual with my own path rather than simply the strong, independent one who needed less support. Professionally, my success with the villa had opened new doors. My company had promoted me to lead a division focused on innovative residential projects. Colleagues sought my input on challenging designs. The workshops for women interested in property development had attracted attention from local business groups and media. And personally, I had discovered a new level of confidence that came from standing firm in my worth. This had rippled through all my relationships, allowing me to be more authentic and set clearer boundaries. Ryan and I had begun exploring a relationship that went beyond professional collaboration, built on mutual respect and genuine appreciation for each other's strengths. As the evening wound down and I said goodbye to my guests, I stepped out onto the terrace one more time. The mountains were silhouetted against the night sky, and lights twinkled in the valley below. My villa stood as a beacon on the hillside, solid, beautiful, and unquestionably mine. The path to this moment had not been easy. There had been technical challenges in the building process, financial hurdles to overcome, and the painful confrontation with my family. But standing there, I knew with absolute certainty that I would make the same choices again. Not out of stubbornness or pride, but because I had learned that honoring my own worth was not selfish, it was necessary. By refusing to give away my dream home, I had ultimately given something more valuable to everyone involved. To Tiffany, the opportunity to grow beyond entitlement and learn financial responsibility. To my parents, a chance to recognize and reconsider patterns that had limited our family relationships. And to myself, the gift of standing firmly in my own value. The villa would always be special to me, but its true significance went far beyond the physical structure. It represented the moment I had finally understood that I did not need to diminish myself to support others, that true generosity comes from wholeness, not self-sacrifice. As I turned to go inside, I took one last look at the beautiful home I had created. It was everything I had dreamed it would be. But the woman who now lived in it was stronger, wiser, and more complete than the one who had first envisioned it. That, perhaps, was the greatest achievement of all. Have you ever had to stand your ground against family pressure? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this account of my journey to protect what I worked for resonated with you, Please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Remember, sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people closest to us, but as I learned, they can also be the most important. Thank you for listening, and I hope my story has given you courage to honor your own worth, whatever that looks like in your life.